Oh my gosh. There is a lot of news that has come out today. Honestly, I was quite surprised to be able to do a news video right after a Nintendo Direct, but yeah, a lot of things happened today. Loads of new Switch 2 games have been announced, loads of game key cards, but the good news is there is one that is not a game key card, and we're going to be talking about all of that today. We're also going to be talking about price increases on the Nintendo Switch 1 products. Oh no, the tariffs are coming. Either way, we have a lot to break down into this video. Let's get started and talk about some Nintendo Switch 2 headlines. Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. Now, we knew that this game existed, we knew it was coming, but what we weren't for sure is if it was going to have a physical copy or not. And right at midnight, we got the news that Mortal Kombat was indeed getting a physical copy. It was coming to the Switch 1, Switch 2, PS5, Xbox One. All of that stuff is getting physical copies. And even the Nintendo Switch 2 version. And it's actually surprisingly not a game key card. Now, I will say something that's interesting to point out about the Switch 2 version is that the physical copy of it is $10 more than the other physical copies of the game, which this does make sense, and I'll explain to you as to why. But the other versions are $49.99, with the Switch 2 version being $59.99. Now, you might be asking yourself, Max, why is this one more expensive than the other ones? Now, from a quality perspective, it's no different than the other versions, especially these are just remastered collections games. They're all going to look and run the same here. But the reason why the Switch 2 version is more is due to the fact that Nintendo only has one other option for developers to use when it comes to not doing something like a game keycard. That option is a 64GB cartridge, which is what Mortal Kombat will be on, which is ridiculous because this game does not need to be on a 64GB cartridge. It doesn't even need like a 2GB cartridge. This is less than a gigabyte. And it's unfortunate that so many people are going to be forced to really go down the game keycard route because of Nintendo and the options that they're giving their developers. As I've said many times, I do think that this will be something that gets addressed into next year. I think Nintendo will have more options for developers, but everything this year is going to be game keycards, I feel like. But I was definitely surprised by the Mortal Kombat news because I did not think that the development team was going to care about making a true physical release of this game, especially considering that it's less than a gigabyte. So props to everyone with this physical release. I'm sure a lot of y'all will be picking this up. You know, if you guys are wanting this, maybe this will be a route where people will charge more for the Switch 2 physical game. That way they don't have to do game key cards. I don't know. This will be something that'll be interesting to see, and I'm glad it's happening. In fact, they're actually going to be doing collector's editions for this game through Limited Run, which you'll probably have to wait a long time for it, but the collector's edition, I mean, I'm not a Mortal Kombat guy. I like to play the games for the story, but I'm not like a die-hard fan of it. So I won't be picking up the collector's edition, but I'm sure one of y'all will probably be interested in this. It looks like you get a nice controller holder, which is cool to see those make a comeback. I think those are some really unique things that you can use for your controllers. I think they look so cool. Let's take a pause on some Switch 2 headlines and go straight into what is probably the most unfortunate news regarding what we are talking about today. Nintendo made a press statement this morning saying that on August 3rd, all Nintendo Switch 1 products will be increased due to the tariffs. And something that I think is important to point out into their statement is that they do mention that the Nintendo Switch 2 could change in price in the coming months, which is something that I predicted would happen. Like I told y'all many times before, I think that in terms of tariffs, you're not going to have to worry about the Switch 2 really until the holiday season when they're going to have to start bringing more things out over here to America when it comes to the systems and games. I think that the Switch 2 will increase. In terms of what price, I don't know. We also don't even really know what the prices are going to be for these new Nintendo Switch 1 products, as Nintendo did not release a statement regarding what the prices are. If you guys want the exact wording of what Nintendo said, they said pricing for the Nintendo Switch 2 system, physical and digital Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 games, as well as Nintendo Switch Online memberships, will remain unchanged at this time. However, Please note that the price adjustments may be necessary in the future. So that tells me, like we talked about before, months before the system, I felt like that the Switch 2 was going to be untouched until we got to later towards the end of the year. Now, there has been some speculation of what the price adjustments are going to be due to Target, because Target updated their website this morning with Nintendo Switch prices that were all over the place. However, they have since been taken down, and we don't know if this was true or not, if the Target prices were correct, and I'll reveal what those prices are now. Like I said, let's take this pricing with a grain of salt until August 3rd, as there's been no statement. But the Nintendo Switch 1, no OLED, just regular Switch 1, is going to be $339.99. A Nintendo Switch OLED is going to be $399.99, which is $400. That's kind of brutal to pay that price for a Switch 1, if I'm honest. And then the Nintendo Switch Lite will be $229.99. Interestingly enough, the Joy-Con controllers were affected by this. It doesn't seem like the regular Joy-Cons were affected, but the actual Joy-Cons for the Nintendo Switch 2. These are going to be going from $95 to $100, which is absolutely insane. And then Alarmo is going to go from $100 to $110. So from the Nintendo Switch systems, it looks like the prices for that are going up $30 to $40, depending which console you go with. And then controllers and accessories are $5 to $10 extra. This is really brutal, and they're suggesting that amiibo prices might be going up as well for the standard amiibos that have already been pre-existing. If you guys have paid attention, the pre-existing amiibos have been $16, but any of the newer stuff has been $20 to $30 to even $40 with the Street Fighter amiibos. I'm hoping stuff gets worked out to where these prices do not stay for long, but this is absolutely insane that you have to pay so much money to own a Nintendo console, and I am so sorry to those that are struggling to not being able to pick up this stuff because of these prices, as these prices are ridiculous. They are getting super duper ridiculous, especially with these consoles and games. I am really hopeful that the Switch 2, if it does get a price increase, that it doesn't go too crazy, because it's hard to me to justify buying a Switch OLED at this point anymore. $400 for that. Just save money, an extra $50 to get the Switch 2. It's all over the place. Everything's struggling with this. I'm hopeful that it doesn't touch the Switch 2, and I'm hopeful the Switch 1 stuff will eventually go down. Wow, that was actually pretty depressing. Now I feel like we're all in a depressed mode watching this video. So let's change that up with talking about some Nintendo Switch 2 physical games. Now, Chronos was a game that was shown off at the Nintendo Direct yesterday, and this game was looking interesting. It definitely looked like a Walmart version of Dead Space. However, it's coming out September 5th on the Switch 2. We learned that it's coming out day one with all the other platforms. What was revealed this morning is that it's actually getting a physical release on Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I will tell you, it is a game keycard, which is honestly, like I said, to be expected. 99% of these third-party games for the rest of the year and probably early next year are all going to be game keycards, guys. For example, I want to use Sonic Cross Worlds Racing for example here. This looked like it was supposed to be a game keycard, but there was so much backlash that they changed it from a game keycard to a all-in-one cartridge game, a 64GB cartridge. But when they did that, it was noticeable that the physical release changed from 2025 to early 2026. So I don't think a lot of these developers are going to be changing game keycards to, game carts this year, as that's going to take a big part of the holiday sales, which is what everyone's trying to prepare for this year. That's why I'm saying, I feel like next year is when you'll see a lot of changes done with these game keycards. I'm really thinking Nintendo will give developers more options regarding cartridge sizes, as that's really the only way to defeat game keycards, I feel like, for a lot of these developers, because a lot of these prices don't make sense to put that type of money towards a 64GB cartridge. As we talked about it before, when you pay for a 64GB cartridge, that is super duper expensive. That's why Mortal Kombat is more expensive than the other physical copies of the game. And yeah, hopefully Nintendo, like I said, next year makes a response to this. So THQ had their big annual presentation this year where they show off upcoming games, video game announcements, all that good stuff. and they actually had some Nintendo Switch 2 games being announced here. Now, they didn't have too many announcements here because I'm thinking now they just started to get a development kit for the system is what I'm guessing, because some of the games that they show off in this presentation are definitely games that could have came to the Nintendo Switch 2. So I'm thinking it's stuff that will probably either be announced later or be coming later to the system. But they did drop 2 big game announcements at this presentation. One of those games was SpongeBob SquarePants Titan of Tide. Now, I know y'all are probably going to be like, SpongeBob? Are we really going to talk about SpongeBob here? It's SpongeBob. There's no way it's a video game that's good. Guys, I'm telling you that these newer SpongeBob games that have been coming out have been absolutely fantastic. It's coming from Purple Lamp, the same people that did the remaster for Battle for Bikini Bottom, and the same developers that did the Cosmic Shake. This looks like it's going to be a sequel to the Cosmic Shake, and it's actually really funny to watch the trailer of this because they hired David Hasselhoff to be in the trailer announcing that the SpongeBob game was in development, which is kind of crazy. I mean, there's so many memes regarding him in the SpongeBob universe, but no one's ever done anything since the movie. So it was kind of crazy to see him be here into this trailer, let alone for a video game, because it made more sense to be in like the SpongeBob movie. But I guess they did not want to hire him for SpongeBob movies. But it's cool to see that he's here at least in the SpongeBob video game trailer, which was a nice surprise. It is coming to the Switch 2 physically, but once again, it is a game key card. Like I said, this is just going to be the common thing, unfortunately, because this SpongeBob game is probably like a 5 GB game. I think for a lot of developers, it's hard for them to want to buy the cartridge because it's going to increase their game in terms of that platform, as we saw with Mortal Kombat. And I think they think that's going to hurt their sales a lot, which I think for the normal audience, just someone not knowing much about game key cards, physical cards, all that, I feel like they'll see the price tag of Mortal Kombat and be like, wow, the Switch 2 version is $10 more than the PS5 version, and the Switch 1's $50? Let's just go with the Switch. I think those are the type of decisions that they look at, and like I said, I do think next year it will be addressed, hopefully. SpongeBob also has a collector's edition coming. I don't know why THQ always does these like giant collector's editions and makes them super expensive. Like, believe it or not, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom had a $400 collector's edition. I actually own it, but I didn't spend $400 on it. No one bought the thing, so it went on sale for $75. And it came with like 3 statues. It came with so many cool things. But they're doing something similar, just not as expensive and not as much content in the collector's edition for SpongeBob. Our next game was Reanimal. They confirmed that it was coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. They showed a new trailer off and confirmed that it is coming to the physical game market as a game key card. But this game is honestly looking absolutely incredible, very dark as well. I wish it was coming out this year into like the Halloween time frame, but obviously it can't because they haven't finished the game. But one of the things that I thought was very interesting that I did not realize that I learned from this trailer is that Little Nightmares 3 is not developed by the same people. If you don't realize, Reanimal is coming from the Little Nightmares creators. However, they're not working on Little Nightmares 3, which I thought was kind of weird, especially seeing who they hired for Little Nightmares 3, which is Supermassive Games. Those are the people that did Until Dawn. So I was just so surprised to learn that. I'm sure a lot of people already realized that, but I learned it through here, and now they have their own new IP, which is exciting to see. I think this game is going to be absolutely crazy. I think they're going to be able to do really whatever they wanted to, because I feel like as I was playing through Little Nightmares, that game gets pretty crazy, but I feel like they wanted to go darker with it. And I think having this new game, Reanimal, they're going to be able to go absolutely to the limits with it. So I think this should be very, very interesting to see, and I'm definitely picking this up day one. And then our last thing is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Now, I don't really do much in this anime stuff, but I do think it's important to show this off, as we got a clear way of seeing the differences between the Switch 1 version and the Switch 2 version, which the screenshots that I'm throwing out right now for y'all, it's actually crazy to see the differences from the Switch 1 version and the Switch 2, because the Switch 1 version, when it comes to its backgrounds, are a completely different game. It's actually kind of crazy to see the difference between this. And we also got news regarding the resolution, which I am so confused with what's going on with this. So let's first talk about what the Switch 1 resolution of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is. TV mode resolution will be 1080p, which, you know, makes sense. And then 3D resolution is 720p. I'm going to be honest, I'm not 100% what I'm looking at here. I'm sure someone in the comments will understand this. Then in handheld mode, it's 720p, and then 3D resolution is 480p, I think, if I'm reading this correctly. 3D resolution and resolution. I didn't know there was a difference between the two. So someone in the comments, I'm sure there'll be someone very smart that can address what that means. The Nintendo Switch 2 version of Sparking Zero is going to be 810p docked. And then the 3D resolution is 1080p, which I guess maybe that's cutscenes or something. I don't know. I feel like an idiot on this one. This one I did not realize the differences between. So I'm sorry. Don't want to get mad at me in the comments. The 810p is what I really wanted to talk about in docked mode, because that doesn't make sense, as the Switch 2 is a way more powerful system. I don't know if Bandai or whoever is hired to do the port for this did the DLSS upscaling. That's the only thing I can think of why this is at 810p, as I know that DLSS is something that has been used a lot with these third-party games to get to 1080p or above, you know, like 4K, stuff like that. So thought that was very interesting and such a weird number for the resolution. And it's the same thing for handheld mode, which is also a little bit confusing, because you would think that handheld mode would not be able to be the same thing as TV mode because of the difference, especially since there's a limit for whatever reason on TV mode. I'm not a developer, I don't know what's going on here, but this was definitely weird to read about. And I'm sure that's going to be news that is disappointing for a lot of Dragon Ball fans, especially if they wanted this game to be 1080p. I don't know if this is a chance that it could be fixed as the game's coming out later. I don't know. This was really strange. And they confirmed that the frame rate will be 30 frames per second for both the Nintendo Switch 1 and Switch 2 version. I'm confused once again how the Switch 2 can't go higher than that, let alone be the same frame rate as the Switch 1, as if you paid attention to my video before, I wasn't really sure how they were going to get this game to be on Switch 1, but clearly they're doing so many different changes to allow this game to be on Switch 1. It's very, very weird. It should be very interesting to see what comes out of this when the game officially releases. That's everything I got for y'all. Now, it's been a while since we've done a news video like this. This isn't something we normally do, but if there's enough news and makes sense to do it, I do it when it makes sense. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, as I have been talking for way too much. Check out the description on my Twitter, follow my Instagram, Discord, all that good stuff in the description below, and I will see you guys in the next video.